Welcome to the LU Moment, where we showcase all the great things happening right here at Lamar University with our faculty, staff, students, and alumni. And speaking of alumni, we have someone here today, Holly Hearn, who graduated from Lamar in 2020. We're so excited to have her back. Holly is the owner and private chef for Game Girl Gourmet, and we're going to let her tell us a little bit more about what exactly that entails. But she's also recently been featured on the Food Network on the popular hit TV show called Chopped. And I believe we're going to show a brief segment of that show right now.
I love cooking with rabbit.
I'm open to whatever is being thrown at me. I kind of hope it's crocodile eggs. I am the private chef and owner of Game Girl Gourmet in Galveston, Texas.
My clients really like this dish.
I specialize in providing wild game-based cuisine for private ranches. These other chefs should watch out for me because not only do I cook wild game, I also hunt and catch it.
So delicious.
I am the Swiss Army knife of chefs.
So Holly, let's go ahead and have you start by, first of all, thanks for joining me today on the LU Moment. This is our second video podcast, and we're so happy to have you.
Thank you so much for having me, John. It's really exciting to be here back at my alma mater. So I'm very excited.
Awesome. How was that returning to campus? There's a few new upgrades. I don't know if you noticed.
Gosh, I saw. I mean, the engineering technology building was here, and I think they just finished the honors college when I had graduated. But man, they've made some serious changes. It looks great.
Awesome. Well, we're glad to have you back. And go ahead and tell us a little bit about Game Girl Gourmet. I know there's a lot involved.
Yes. So I own a business called Game Girl Gourmet, and I specialize in providing culinary experiences kind of in the outdoor space. So anything that is hunting and fishing related, I've kind of got my hands in. I am very, very passionate about those two things, as well as cooking, and cooking was kind of always my hobby and my release from all the intensive problem solving that comes with being in the engineering program here at Lamar. But mainly my business focuses on, like I said, providing experiences in the outdoor space. So whether that be learning opportunities, so teaching wild game cooking courses, teaching courses on how to, butcher animals, fish, anything like that. Menu consulting, hospitality consulting for ranches, lodges, fishing operations, things of that nature, all the way to actually doing the private chefing for specialty clients.
Full service,
yes.
For sure. So you go out and hunt and gather the meals that you prepare. Is sometimes okay, that's mixed in as well.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay.
Typically, I'm usually preparing game that the clients have procured.
Okay.
So, but definitely all of my recipes and things of that nature. So I'm also a writer. I write for several different publications in the outdoor space, and so all of my recipe development definitely comes from the animals and fish that I harvest myself.
Okay, fantastic. So I know, let's backtrack a little bit. I know during your time here at Lamar, you were pursuing an industrial engineering degree, which you did graduate with.
Yes.
So tell us about the shift from industrial engineer to private chef. I know they kind of work together, and we chatted about this over the phone the other day. But explain that to the listeners and viewers.
So they absolutely all work together. I don't actually know if it would be possible for me to pull off the kind of events that I pull off alone if I didn't have the background in industrial engineering. So a lot of it is process-based and standardization, lean manufacturing, things of that nature, quality. So those two things I think are highly related, because when it comes down to it, cooking really is a science. There's a lot of chemistry involved in cooking, especially when you're trying to repeat a process as opposed to just recreating a recipe. So when you're developing a recipe, there's got to be a lot of thought into how the ingredients are interacting, or is this flavor canceling out this, and whatnot. So that base knowledge that I received during getting my engineering degree, I would say was critical to where I'm at right now.
Yeah.
Especially in terms of standardizing processes. I mean, I have process maps for probably from the time my clients call me into the ordering process to how I calculate quantities. Everything is kind of done in that with the quality mindset. but it's also pretty technical. It's not like I'm just like making a grocery list and going shopping, especially when you're coordinating, you're coordinating 6 meals in 3 days for 20 people, and you're trying to think, okay, I need X amount of X, and that sometimes can be a little daunting. So
yeah, well, like you said, I think there's a lot of thought that goes into it with the quantities and the exact ingredients to make these recipes come to life. And I know something else, you told me to brush up on industrial engineering, and I tried, but I'm a communications person, so let's face it. But it even talked about like workstations and job design, and I think when you get into the kitchen, all of that does come into play.
Absolutely, and I feel like that's something that's sometimes kind of overlooked as a manufacturing process, but the majority, people hate to hear that, right? Because cooking is love and food is love, and they don't want to think about it as a science. And but it is, in terms of how you put it all together, especially when you're doing it on large scales. So in terms of a restaurant, we have something called mise en place, which is everything in its place. Okay. That is pretty equal to lean manufacturing, where we're setting things in its place on a station, so that way you can come through and assemble these dishes in a timely manner that allows for repeatability of that process. Because if you think about a restaurant, which I don't work in restaurants, but if you think about a restaurant, they're making the same dishes over and over again. So in order to do that, though, there has to be some standardization in the kitchen that is kind of equivalent to what it's like on a manufacturing line.
Very true. I think that's a very interesting point as well. And something that I think maybe people don't always think about is the presentation piece of everything. Like, let's say, I've been known to do some catering on the side from here and there just for extra money around the holidays and stuff, and I've done that probably the last 12 years or so. But even just down to something as simple as putting a dessert plate out, and then you put your caramel on first, and then your cheesecake, and then do it again. Just little things like that, the design aspects. You have to think about all that stuff.
For sure, and you definitely have to think about how long it's taking too. So the timing of the processes is, that's all work design in industrial engineering. So the timing of how long something takes and how many steps it takes you to complete the process, all critical because hospitality really is a show. It's theater.
Oh, yeah.
So
that's a good way to put it.
Yeah,
you're in show business.
I am in show business. So being able to, especially being as a private chef, where I'm typically in somebody's home, or like I have 6 people sitting at my bar and they're watching me do these things. So being organized and efficient with my time, and having everything prepped properly, allows me to engage with them while also keeping my assembly, as it should be.
Awesome. So with something like this, where has this taken you? I imagine near, far, everywhere,
Man,
I'm sure you've seen a lot. So
all over. I have been so fortunate. I worked in 3 months. For 3 months last year, I worked in New Zealand at a hunting ranch on the South Island, and it was absolutely incredible. I learned so much about hospitality and what it was like to be in the international business. And then I worked for the last 2 summers in Alaska at different fishing camps. And so you want to talk about learning some logistics. There's this joke that says, if you want to be a good cook, go cook for the Army, because you're cooking for so many people at one time. That's kind of how it was in Alaska, where I was cooking for 40 people with one other person, and it was my first time doing it. So there's a lot of figuring things out. That's where that mise en place really comes in. But we're also the logistics of how we get our groceries in each of those places has taught me a lot. So it's a lot of supply chain management, because you're getting groceries maybe once every 2 weeks. Once a week. In New Zealand, it was less of that, but in remote Alaska, we're talking I was a 2-hour plane ride, 2-hour boat ride, or a 45-minute float plane ride from the closest town. And the closest town didn't even really have groceries. Everything was coming from Anchorage, so we're on the islands at a tent camp. So we ran on generator power, for the fridges, and we had propane tanks for the ovens, but everything was done in a tent. And so figuring out how to do all of that and make those higher end flavors in that setting, instrumental for my career. But it's taken me, this has taken me all over, and I've been so fortunate to work on some really incredible ranches in the state of Texas.
Fantastic. And So on that same note, could you tell us what does a day in the life of Holly look like whenever you are on these ranches or at these lodges? I imagine you're waking up probably 3, 4 o'clock in the morning to start getting prepped for breakfast. What's a typical day in your life look like?
Man, each day is so different, especially when I'm, working on like consulting versus the chefing thing. So let's go through the chef, like a day in the life when I'm doing private chefing. So you are right. Typically I'll wake up at between like 3:30, 4 a.m. And it really depends on what's happening. Are we hunting? Are we fishing?
Okay.
What's going on? But typically I'll wake up early and I'll start the prep for breakfast. And then depending on if we are having a situation where clients are like taking lunches out in the field, we try to do that the night before.
Okay.
But sometimes you know how it is.
Yeah.
Like things get left until the morning of.
Right.
But breakfast service comes and we'll be ready to go, and it really does vary based on the specific operation. Some operations have like made to order eggs, and so you're manning a station and trying to be like too over easy, too scrambled. Yeah,
orders.
so many like moving parts. Not great
right.
for my brain sometimes, but it really does depend on what that specific operation's requirements are. However, it is wake up, get everything prepped for breakfast, and after breakfast service, do the clean up, do the dishes, maybe do a little bit of prep for lunch, maybe hopefully get a nap in if I can.
Right.
And then lunch service is usually pretty casual for the most part.
Okay.
It's fun. I like to do fun sandwiches and things like that, and homemade soups, keep it kind of fresh. And then usually about 3 or 4 p.m., maybe earlier, depending on where daylight savings is a huge factor in this when you're talking about spending time in the outdoors.
Yeah. And time in other countries.
Yes.
Things are so much different.
Yes, that is a huge. I'm glad you brought that up. So sometimes there are cultural differences that they have afternoon tea in New Zealand, so having snacks available. Yeah. It was definitely a learning curve when I got there, but. So then prep for dinner usually begins, and typically I do 4 courses for dinner. So there's an appetizer, salad course, entree, and then dessert. So it really does vary operation to operation, but typically you can expect some really long days, some hard work. But I always make time in the middle of that to enjoy where I'm at, because that's one of the huge perks about having this job is being able to go for a walk. I mean, last week I was just in New Mexico, and right outside my kitchen window I could see the mule deer that were coming in, and the beautiful mountains in the background. It was gorgeous. So I definitely try to make time during the day to always appreciate where I'm at and whatnot.
Enjoy the perks of the job
as
well.
Enjoy the perks of the job.
Work. I can actually enjoy some scenery, and So I guess I also want to ask, I know last week you just brought this up. You were in New Mexico, I believe, for 6 days, 7 days on a remote ranch. And then you travel to these countries, you do all these things. What does Holly do when she has time to herself? Are you out hunting, or what's a typical? Yeah. If you have an off week, what does that look like?
So if I have an off week, typically I'm working on my spreadsheets and figuring out how I can better program and move things around. I know that's kind of boring, but I also have several other facets to the business outside of just the private chefing. So during the summer, I own a meal prep service for the sport fishing yachts that fish the billfish tournaments.
Very cool.
So I'm kind of always thinking about what are good recipes for that? How can I improve that service? How can I improve the flow of my house to better accommodate these different portions of my business? Because my house flooded during Hurricane Beryl. So that's kind of been what I've spending my...
So you're navigating that as well.
Yeah, so that's kind of what I've been spending the majority of my spare time doing, is working on my house and hanging out. And I shoot sporting clays. That's kind of my hobby. That's been my hobby since I was a student at Lamar. I used to shoot at 1 in 100 gun club. But sporting clays, if you don't know, is kind of like golf. But you have a target presentations. There's 10 stations. Each presentation is different, and the goal is to break all the clays.
Okay.
And so
That sounds fun.
Yeah, it's just like golf. So I try
Probably a good
to,
stress reliever too.
for sure.
Help you decompress a little bit.
Oh, absolutely. And so I spend a lot of time doing that. I like to paddleboard. I live close to Galveston, so I'm on the water
Yeah.
quite a bit.
Perfect spot for it.
Yeah, and then I enjoy like exercising and reading. I'm a huge reader.
Okay.
So I have lots of things that I do. I'm just a busy person.
That's great. I mean, you got to fill in the gaps. We can't just work 24/7, so especially with you with the traveling. And
Yeah.
it's just constant.
Well, and then it's
sure.
hard also because I'm so passionate about what I do that sometimes I can like burn myself out on my
Yeah.
own passions. So
It's
I definitely
easy.
have
Yeah,
to.
when you're super passionate, it's easy. The burnout is real.
Yeah,
For
it's swift.
sure. So speaking of passion, obviously cooking is a passion, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Where did all this spark from? Was it from your childhood? Or I know you told me during 2020, during your time here at Lamar, it was kind of like a side hustle, how Game Girl Gourmet came about.
Well, I thought it was going to be. So
That's how it started, right?
Yeah, that's how
Yeah.
it started. So cooking has to kind of get the full story, I dropped out of college the first time in 2013. I was going to A&M Galveston, and I didn't really know what I wanted to do. I had not been living in a super healthy manner, and so I moved home to Beaumont, and taught myself how to cook because I was trying to make some pretty significant healthy lifestyle changes.
Yeah. Yeah,
But yeah, so I really was like diving into teaching myself how to cook, but kind of like a lot of people who are from this area, my family's like Cajun, so everybody in my family cooks. So,
Yeah. Oh, okay.
And we have huge family holidays, so a big portion of what I love most about food is the connection and the gathering. And so there's something nice about at the end of the day, like sharing a meal together. And so those were kind of the feelings that drew me to cooking, on top of just like the need to survive. And
Right.
it was also such a great way for me to decompress from like when I re-enrolled in school and started, the engineering program here is pretty demanding.
Yeah, it's pretty intense.
And it was definitely just a way for me to enjoy food and try new things, and just kind of decompress from all of the really technical work. So, and I love trying new foods. I grew up traveling, and so to date I've been to 34 countries, and
Holy moly.
and so
You
I
got
had
me beat
such
by
a
like 30.
wide palette, and recreating some of those dishes with wild game and fish that I had already had in my freezer was just really actually how this whole thing started. And then it was like, well, if I can do that, how far can I push it? What can I
Right.
make? And then I would just keep trying, and I still to this day I keep trying to see how far can I go.
Keep evolving.
Yeah.
Trying new things. So something else very unique during your time here as well in 2020, you were reached out to by MasterChef.
Yes.
And you made it pretty far in the process, right?
Yes, it was actually crazy. So that started in 2019 when they reached out. So the audition process for that show was pretty long.
Okay.
And it was really exciting. However, that show requires like a communication blackout. So basically if you make it to a certain point in the auditions, they fly you to Los Angeles, which I made it to. And then they take your cell phone as soon as you land. And so keep in mind, this is in the middle of the semester. And it was so stressful because I didn't know how anything was going to work. I was in my very last semester of my senior year.
Oh, goodness.
And I had my senior project and everything going on. And it was honestly crazy because I had never really considered being a chef as a career option, because I had been working in manufacturing since 2013, and then I had a great internship at BASF and then also at Southampton. So I was pretty primed, but then as you know, in 2020, this crazy thing called COVID happened. But I was in Los Angeles, and I made it all the way through like the final rounds of auditions, and got sent home, which ended up being such a blessing for me. because 2 days later they shut the airport down for COVID.
Oh, wow.
And so all in all, I ended up only being gone from school for 2 weeks. So I was able to get my work back on track. Catch up kind of quick, and then graduate on time.
Right.
But yeah, so that is kind of that was a crazy experience. Very cool. It was really the first time I ever I guess realized that other people considered me talented enough in my cooking, in the area of cooking, that it could be a career. And then, so I graduated that May. The market, as you know, just did not recover. It was not even until the next year that we were technically out of lockdown.
Right.
So I sat around, like, didn't sit around for a couple months, but man, I was really just thought, I was like, I worked so hard while I was in school. I was the student that killed myself, you know?
Yeah. I'm going to get this degree. I got that.
Yeah, I was not one of the students that it all came so easy to me. I had to work really hard. And I was just thinking, I was like, man, I love industrial engineering. I love quality. Quality specifically was always my area that I really, in statistical process control, those are always my areas that I really really focused on. And so the job market was just abysmal, and I was like, what do I have to lose? I just decided to, like, one of my friends actually is the captain on a yacht, and he was like, why don't you come fish with us? Like, bring the ingredients, cook some meals, we won't charge you for gas. And so I did that, and he actually, Captain Jack Beal, was like, why don't you start this as a business and see what happens?
Okay.
And so I did, and I it just has taken off.
Never looked back.
Yeah, taken off from there. But initially I had started Game Grill Gourmet to be kind of a side hustle.
Yeah.
Just until, the market recovered, but it ended up being, what it is now, which is crazy.
Yeah. But like you said, you can tie in all these different aspects of your background and your experience. And I feel like 2020 was kind of like a reset year for a lot of people.
Yeah.
Things that you maybe put on the back burner that you've always loved, or passions you never pursued, you finally decided, I'm going to go for it.
Yeah.
Sounds like that's what you did.
Well, I think for me it was more or less like when you're being pulled in a different direction, like you go with the natural flow of things. And it's not easy by any means, but if it becomes easier. I think 2020 really had a way of teaching people about themselves, for sure.
Yes.
Because I learned I am not a person that I'm not going to sit and wait until things are better. I'm going to go ahead and make my own better.
There you go.
And I mean, it was such a blessing the way that everything worked out. But to your point of what you were just talking about, how everything is all connected, there's this book called Loser Think by Scott Adams, and he talks about this concept called talent stacking. And it's how all information that you gather throughout the course of your life is relevant. So you don't actually know how everything that you're gaining experience doing stacks together. Because when I started Game Grill Gourmet, it was like pretty strictly private chefing. And now I'm utilizing my industrial engineering degree and doing like cost analysis on menus for lodges, and they're like implementing ordering systems, like doing all these things that are, very supply chain management, like things of that nature. But when I first started, I didn't have that whole vision of what it could be until I kind of just started just putting one foot in front of the other.
Yeah, laying the groundwork for sure. So how do you think that experience with Master Chef helped you out with this new experience on Chopped on the Food Network? I feel like maybe just a little bit of you dipped your toe in the water at first, and now you're actually got to do it.
Well, without getting into too much of my own personal feelings about either show, I will say that probably one of the craziest things is all the cameras in your face all the time.
Oh yeah.
So on Master Chef, we had you had people you were the part of the show that I was in. We were in this big kitchen. You had 6 stations, and there's 8 other people cooking with you, but there's all these producers walking around, like talking to you, asking you questions, like judging your personality, like judging your cooking skills, like can we make this look good on camera, like all kind of stuff. Chopped really kind of wasn't like that. That was more of everybody there was professionally trained, so all of the chefs competing had like 13 plus years of executive chef experience, except for me. And which, you know, for better or for worse, was
you're still there with them.
I was still there with
You're
them.
Like, I still have a seat at the table. So.
For sure. And I think that, I don't know, actually. That's a great question, and I've never thought about it, but I think that MasterChef kind of maybe desensitized me a little bit to the process of the waiting and the not hearing and like having faith. And
going off the grid, basically. Take your cell phone and, you know, no access to social media or any of
that stuff. And Chopped, I will. So MasterChef is like an ongoing show, right? Chopped isn't like a plot line. So Chopped is not dramatized at all.
It's by the episode, right?
Every single episode is a different competition, whereas MasterChef is like a continuous.
Yes.
So there's they do a lot more personality testing for shows like MasterChef. But Chopped was like such a great experience and really incredible. I had like the most fun time, and let me tell you, you do not know how quickly 20 minutes passes you by, especially when you get like, if you haven't seen the episode yet, my first basket was rattlesnake, duck head soup, bagels, and mangoes.
And you just have to make something in 20 minutes.
20 minutes.
Wow.
So
Pressure's on.
Yeah, high pressure, but it was so fun. It was such a great experience. I'm really glad that I didn't let the fear, not of failure, but of, you know, I think we all kind of have a fear of being exposed.
Like uncertainty.
Not even uncertainty, but we all have a fear of like being put on a stage and then like, oh my gosh, what if I don't know as much as the other people, or what if I'm like what if I'm not actually qualified to be here? And I'm glad that I didn't let any of those fears, because I have a degree in engineering, so like
you're like, I know, is it imposter syndrome? Is that what people call it?
That is,
no, I understand
as the kids
that
would
completely.
say, like I'm not a kid.
No, I understand that. Well, that's you talking about industrial engineering. I was like, oh gosh, this is going to be a tough chat for me.
Nah.
But no, it's been great. So currently you're working on menu consulting and things like that. You want to touch on that?
More so hospitality consulting. Hospitality is a huge industry, and if you think about like going to a really nice hotel, what are the things about going to a really nice hotel that you remember?
Oh, you're asking me.
Well.
Okay, I thought you were just saying in general. Well, I mean, you remember, I think hospitality is making you feel comfortable wherever you are.
Yes,
so that's kind of like if you walk into a nice atmosphere, you remember the customer service, you remember the things that are in the room, the amenities and things like that.
Absolutely.
The experience.
Yeah, the experience. Mm-hmm. So when you're thinking about that, we can relate that to a system, right? So there's a system that all of these things that function, they operate to create this overarching experience. And so when you kind of take that line of thinking and say, okay, so here's a system and here's an experience, and we break those down into their like individual things and parts and pieces, what that looks like is steps. So there are things that you don't even realize that are going on behind the scenes of your most favorite restaurant, your most favorite hotel, that are standardized, they're repeatable. And so one of the things that I help operations with is I come in and I have a great disguise as being hired as their private chef, so I can kind of observe all these interactions that are taking place between the client and the employees, the guests, and
got a
whomever.
front row seat to everything.
Yeah, front row seat to everything. Great fly on the wall position.
Right.
But what I'm doing is I'm really like taking the time to like study the interactions and give guides for doing these things that you don't actually know are being done. And creating that overall end product that is a really great experience. So whether that be creating a checklist for the like amenities team of, okay, so the bed needs to be turned down, you need to place a piece of chocolate on the pillow before you walk out, or
yeah.
or if that looks like a more technical thing. So we want to spend X amount of dollars per client on menus. So let's write a menu and create a way to order so we can meet said budget and not have excessive waste. So it really is like a multitude of things, like on the consulting realm, that really does vary between like super technical and like here's a checklist.
Yeah.
But all of those things work together to create a flawless system.
Absolutely. And kind of to your point earlier, I feel like it's another layer of adding on to what Game Grill Gourmet started as.
Yeah.
Chef to hospitality to, all the things. So you're covering all your bases there. So I do want to ask you, you said you've been to 34 countries?
Yeah.
Holy moly. Could you name maybe 3 of your favorite spots? And they don't have to be, it could be here in Texas. I don't know, maybe 3 lodges that your experience was amazing or the hunters were exceptional.
Well, man, I have really awesome private clients. So I do a lot more with private ranches as opposed to like lodges.
Okay.
One of my favorite places I've ever worked was Glendean in New Zealand. Okay. It's on the South Island. It is so beautiful if you ever have the chance, or if you go to the South Island of New Zealand. It is the most incredibly enchanting, magical place. It's beautiful. It's like everywhere you turn, it's taking your breath away.
Yeah.
And the air is clean. The people are amazing. Oh yeah, it is such an incredible country. And then in terms of like culinary education, I think a place that I've been recently that I learned the most in was Peru. And I did. I loved Peru.
Awesome.
We did a pretty deep culinary study on the agricultural of the Incan Empire, and then working our way up through how they use the produce from the Amazon with the seafood, because they're right on the coast, and so the Humboldt Current runs. And I mean, man, I learned so much on that particular trip, which was more of a culinary journey as opposed to a working trip. But for me, it's like I said, talent stacking. That's all relevant information. Yeah, it's a great book. He's the Dilbert. He's the guy. This is like showing my age, but do you know the Dilbert comics?
Yes.
He is the author of the Dilbert comic strip.
How cool is that?
Yeah.
Okay. Awesome.
I actually think it's a great book for students to read. I read it my sophomore year of school, and it really helped me, because I'm like, how are my hobbies even relevant? Because I was one of those students that I was like, I need to be working all the time.
Yes.
But hobbies are so important, and you don't know how they all interact. So whatever your passion is, pursue it.
Yeah, well, something you said to me on the phone earlier this week was that you're really passionate about students or young people not being locked into one thing. And I feel like your career trajectory since your college experience is a really great example of that. So do you want to kind of explain a little bit more what you meant by that?
Yes. So whatever your degree program is, you can do anything you set your mind to. Pretty early on in my career, I was told that engineering might not look like what I think engineering looks like, because a lot of times we imagine somebody at a desk with a computer and a calculator, figuring out how to design a bridge or, doing something crazy. And while that's definitely a job that pertains to that, I think that there are lesser known jobs like in healthcare and aerospace and hospitality, all of these places where those skills are relevant, but maybe haven't been thought about in that way. And so there's just so much opportunity waiting for you to figure out how to creatively apply the skills that you're learning right now. And if you're willing to open your mind and think about things in a different way, really the possibilities are endless. And I'm super passionate about telling people that, because if you look at it on the surface level, right? If you're what does engineering and being a chef have to do with each other? How are those two things even related? But if you start breaking that down and getting into the micro level, it
makes a lot of sense.
Makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
And so learning how you learn is also something that is one of the purposes of higher education, I think. and
I agree.
figuring out how you can continuously learn after you leave here, because it's like
Yes.
another great piece of advice that I was told was that it's called a commencement ceremony because that's when the life learning can commence.
Okay.
So
Oh, I like that.
Yeah, so you
Yeah.
just keep learning and you keep talent stacking and keep gaining new skills, and
Yeah.
like you might not always see how they're all connected or they all fit
Right.
together, but in the grand, symphony of your life, they will fall into beautiful harmony.
Love that. I think that's great advice. Everyone's got their own talents and things that
Yeah.
they bring to the table. So I do want to ask you really quickly, how can folks keep in touch with Game Girl Gourmet, or just you as Holly Hearn, where the socials or any of the things that they can follow?
So you can definitely follow me on social media on Facebook and Instagram at Game Girl Gourmet. I put out a monthly newsletter, so you can go to my website and sign up for that. If you're a Lamar student or ever interested in chatting about being an entrepreneur, engineer, chef, whatever that may be, please feel free to reach out to me through my DMs or whatever. Just say, hey, I'm a Lamar Cardinal, head it with that, and I'll be sure to respond. So
Fantastic.
definitely keep up with me. I'm pretty passionate about, like I said, young people and being in business. And
Yeah, we'll have to set this up next time when you come to campus where you can talk to some of the students. Maybe.
yeah, I would love to do that.
We'll get that going for you for next time, because we'd love to bring you back. So thanks again, Holly, for joining me today on the LU Moment. It's been a great
thank
chat.
you guys so much for having me.
It's been wonderful, and we always love to talk to our alumni and find out all the amazing things that y'all are up to. So thanks once again.
Thank you.
That's a wrap on this episode of the LU Moment. Don't forget to search LU Moment wherever you get your podcasts to keep up with the people, places, programs, and events right here at Lamar University. Follow LU on our socials. It's simple. Just search Lamar University on your preferred social media. And don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel so you don't miss out on future episodes. This is John Rollins, your host, saying thank you for listening, and we'll see you next time.